the conversations like with Andy getting to come back, and what's it like having him back now?
Well, first of all, it's great to have Andy back. We were together a long time. It didn't take very long um, for me to reflect back on just certain things Andy brings to the program each and every day, and ideas, thoughts, challenging ways of looking at things, a lot of different things, energy. Um, you know, um, After the season, looking at a lot of different things. Obviously, the change at Penn State. I think most of you know Andy and I have stayed in contact, throughout the last couple of years, and as we progressed, just talking about it, kind of his, what was the next thing. I kind of floated it out there that depending on how things shook out, that I would be very interested in finding a role here for him. Obviously, there's contractual things that you have to go through to make sure that he was not employed there anymore. Andy had a lot of opportunities, and I'll say it now, I'll say it again, that Andy Kotelnicki will be a head coach someday, and probably someday soon. And he had opportunities to explore some of those again. But as we talked about it, and it got a little more serious about things, about how it would work out, a lot of different things. So it took a while, and then it gets into the contractual things, and we finally got it worked out, right after the first of the year, or something like that, right after their bowl game. We were able to, it was about I don't know, maybe 36-hour turnaround from getting it done for him to be in this building, and he was ready to go, and reminded me right back to the first time I hired Andy back in 2013. He interviewed, offered him the job, he accepted it, he drove all the way back to Bismarck, North Dakota, and turned around and came back to Whitewater, Wisconsin in under 48 hours to get to work, and that's the type of guy that he is. On that note, and I'm sure it's going to come up next, but one of the first things Andy talked about as we progress in this was how was Jim going to be, and how that was, and he wanted to make sure that Jim was here and that they would continue to work together. So.
Yeah, so with his title, with Andy's title as associate head coach, what does that entail week to week?
Week to week, he, again, heavily involved in what we're doing offensively, and be involved in play calling and doing things of that nature. But again, more than probably the first time around of being a right-hand man to me in many different things that are, when time will allow, to move our program forward. I mean, a lot of different things of, obviously, when somebody else is in another program, ideas of how things were done and things like that, but whether it be with any other staff additions, evaluations, things like that, he'll be involved with me in a lot of different things. Again, I can't say there's going to be a ton of difference than when he was here as a coordinator and as an associate head coach before, but probably a little more in depth in some areas. But yeah, he'll be extremely involved offensively, but it'll probably spread more programmatically than it did before.
When you say involved in play calling, do you mean on game, like, is Jim still play
caller? Andy will be the play caller, okay, and that's not going to be a secret very long. So I mean, but again, as far as Jim's going to be a passing game coordinator, heavily involved. Matt's going to be involved again, and again, I think a lot of times some titles are very direct, some are very much vague in what they do. Game plans are put together on a weekly basis by an offensive staff. Everybody has input and roles. I think there'll be definitive things that we'll work on that, Matt will be heavily involved in our, and he has been since he was an analyst, our option game, okay, and Jim and Matt will be involved in red zone and things like that, but ultimate terminology, day-to-day things of where it's at. Andy will have the final say.
Lance, it's the off season, so I'm gonna connect one for you. If you look around in the NFL, these head coaching openings, a lot of them are offensive minded guys that are getting these jobs. I wonder, you know, defense wins championships and all that, but bringing a guy like Andy back in a bigger picture of the sport, the game of football, how important is it to continue to move your offense forward, whatever that means and however that looks?
Well, it's extremely important. I mean, again, we look at a lot of different things that, where we were after the season on both sides of the ball. We have to get better on both sides of the ball. As I've said in multiple meetings with different people, it could be administratively, it could be within our building and our staff, it could be maybe with one of you or anyone else that I may talk with. We all can sit there and we could pick out 3 or 4 plays and some of the things that everybody's like wanting change and wanting certain things to happen. We would not even be talking about those. The margins are very small. We've said that for 5 years in here, and it continues to be small. But at the same time, we have to progress, and I can't stick my head in the sand on it and find ways for us to make our offense and our defense better. If Andy wasn't available, we would have stayed status quo. And I've said this before, we had 2 first-year coordinators. I would think everybody in this room was better at their job the second year than they were the first year. But across, right, Henry? You're smiling.
It's relatable.
It's relatable, right? But what happens is, what I've also done, and I probably shouldn't even go in this route, but I will for a couple seconds, is for those of you, and I think a couple of you are social media people pretty good, right, Michael?
Yeah.
And okay, and so any given Sunday or Saturday or whatever, start looking at the names of the coordinators and head coaches of a losing team during the course of a game. You can do it in basketball. We're in a society right now where we want everything instantly and we want change right away when something doesn't go right. And I wasn't about that, and I've never been about that, and I won't be about that. I understand what we're up against. I know we have to get better. We'll continue to evaluate what we're doing. But at the end, yeah, it is about offensive. There's some things, and there's things that we didn't get better. We weren't good in the red zone. We didn't do things. We turned the ball over late in the game when we had chances to beat a ranked football team to close out the season. Very unfortunate. But we all know that that's what college football is right now. It's very close, and we have to find ways to continue to get better. And the thing that I'm excited about with Andy is that people want to come back to Kansas. We walked into a program where people couldn't wait to get out of here fast enough. There's some smiles in the room. Okay? And also with that, we have changed the expectations in this program. And now they're harder to match. And we have to match them. And we will match them. And we understand that part of that success has changed how we go about things. So again, all those are good things. Those are good things to embrace. And I think our staff and with the addition of Andy and some other small things that we're doing, I think we're going to be as good as we've ever been in that regard. Now, the way this conference is, the way college football is, what does that equate to? That'll be determined in the fall.
How has Jim handled the transition?
Jim, I can't thank Jim enough for his professionalism, how he's gone about it. He understood it, and when I told Jim my decision and what I was doing, his first and really only question is, do I still get to coach the quarterbacks? And that's what and that's what I love about Jim. And I've said, if you've known Jim long enough, if Jim wasn't coaching at the University of Kansas, and he also said how much he loves it here, his family loves it here, his daughter just graduated from here, Jim would go coach at the middle school. and enjoy every second of it as he does here because he's a football coach. And that's what he wanted to make sure. I assured him that he had a position. I'm sure that he and Andy wanted him here, that there wasn't a thing where he wanted a wholesale. And that can be uncomfortable. But Jim is about us being the best program we can be, and he's handled it extremely well. And looking forward to those two to collaborate together.
You guys got to know Dylan Edwards really well through the recruiting process when he was a high school kid. He came up and visited, you recruited him. What were those conversations like, and how did that go once he hit the transfer portal? How did he wind up at Kansas?
Yeah, we received a call about if there was interest. There was one that I could probably say I was monitoring it, from afar about where it was happening. Obviously, it wasn't the season he wanted last year, battling the injury, but obviously we did our background search with former members of the Kansas State staff to get background on what as best we could about what maybe transpired. Went through, we asked him to come down. I think many of you know this story already, but I'll say it for the record, is he came down here unofficially. We spent a lot of time. He had a lot to sort through, and we tried to recruit Dylan out of high school. Partially when he went in the portal the first time, there was things there that Devin was still here, and that wasn't, he didn't feel was a match for him that time. But there was interest that, of course, this time around, and talk about that, we all want this to work, and we all want the best for Dylan and where it's at. And, then he came on the official visit with his parents, and, we're at this point, and we're excited to have him. He's excited to be back around a football team and working hard. He's, I think, extremely humble and determined to be healthy, and get himself in a position to help our football team. And there's no other agenda other than that for him to try to reach and play his best football and to help our football team.
You talked a little bit about coordinators, just like everybody, being better in the second year that they do something.
Mm-hmm.
What's the optimism level on the defense with DK McDonald returning, but also a lot of guys who played under DK McDonald last year and having their second year in the system along with that?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about a lot of things, guys. I've been told about how disappointing last year was in defense, and sometimes I pause and go, we had a whole new back seven. Okay, and there's growing pains with that. And one thing that I've talked about here and different things was we got to communicate better. We got to talk. And again, there's a lot more schematic changes than I ever let on in this room, because there was, and I gave DK the latitude to do that, and I think it will be beneficial for us in the long run. Again, through that and new corners, safeties and that. Now we return a few more that have played, and I think I really like the bodies that we've and the people that we've added in the portal. That'll give us a chance to take a step defensively, again, to be the team we want to be. Again, we can think of a play, maybe the Cincinnati game. We could think of a couple plays in the Arizona game, and again, we got to coach better, but we can go through any of those and probably the last game of the year, one or two more stops or one more turnovers. We're not sitting there questioning as much as we have been. Now, being more consistent, making those plays and doing that is what we have to do this time around.
One more on Andy. I'm curious, spending 2 years somewhere else and different ideas and things like that, has he mentioned things to you of different things that he was led on to at Penn State where he learned different ways of doing it or different approaches for an off-season or game plan meetings, stuff like that? Were there any kind of extra things that he'd mentioned to you that maybe you picked up on at Penn State?
Yeah, I was just gonna decide if I was gonna say something that I won't say it. Yeah, there's a lot. We talked about, I told you that Andy and I spent time together last summer, and we sat, you know, we sat together and talked for like 3 hours talking about things that were different. I guess I'll say it more generically, is things that we talked about is that sometimes Big Ten resources are vastly different than Big 12 resources right now. So you can decipher what I'm talking about. So, I mean, that's one of the things. And again, we're still gonna talk about, you know, acquisition of players and how you go about those things. But yeah, he talked about, in some of those things we're gonna analyze closer, our practice format and how we go about it, the weekly schedule, off season right now, some of the things and how they orchestrate their time and do different things. Yeah, right now, again, I'm still very confident on how we go about things. I'm very confident on what we've done to build this program. But again, I will not be doing my job to the fullest if I'm not open to other ways for us to try to be better. And some of those things I have to look at, and we will modify, because I have to look at what has prevented us from closing out games, what has prevented us from not playing better down the stretch in the season. There's some team things that we go, whether it be in our strength and conditioning program, practice format, length of practice, all those things. And Andy and I are talking a lot about those. He has shared a lot of things from there. Talk about things that we do on a recruiting weekend. Talk about that. And it's great with Andy. But I do that with anything. You know, I asked DK McDonald what they did at Iowa State. I asked Brandon Shelby what they did at Indiana. If you're not trying to grow and learn about what people are doing, then you're not doing your job, in my estimation.
I know player retention's been a really big focus for you guys over the years. A lot of defensive, offensive players who played a lot last year that were able to return ended up coming back. Someone like Trey, you know, as an example, that too had maybe opportunities elsewhere. How pleased are you with you guys' efforts to be able to keep some of those key players here to maintain that continuity?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's to keep our, you know, again, you know, we talked a lot about player retention. We talked about the lack of player retention when we walked into this job. And it was a focal point of what we had to do to try to change how this program was perceived. And we did that. And we will continue to do that. What is also temporary, though, is now you put in some of the money and there's some other things. What we have to do is making sure whether they're here or they're coming in here, that they still want to compete. Because right now, there's something going on, I think it was the coach at Syracuse, Coach Browner, said something about, right now a lot of us, are exchanging our second string guys. Because somebody's not happy. But at the same time, when you're bringing somebody in, you got to want to compete. I said it to one of our departing players. You're bringing in a guy from the portal, that means that he's going to play in front of me. No, it doesn't. It didn't happen last year. I can name 5 guys right off the top of my head who didn't start that came in from the portal. But you got to compete. But guys understand we got to bring in other players. But it's like, don't bring in anybody that's too good. Well, that doesn't make sense. Okay. I had a player last year that was only here for a semester tell me that well, if you'd have known how the room was going to develop, you wouldn't have recruited me. I go, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I said, why wouldn't I try to get the best football players in our room to make our team the best? That's my responsibility. We have a problem right now where guys want it laid out, and again, that is going to happen, but we've still got to get a culture of people that want to compete and win jobs. At the end of the day, no matter how much somebody receives, the best players are going to play.
On that note, someone like Chase Jenkins at quarterback,
Mhm.
I know we talked to you a little bit, and before David transferred, you said maybe
Yeah.
not quarterback, David transfers, there's a spot.
Right.
What'd you like about Chase, and maybe what were those conversations like of explaining, hey, we got Isaiah and Cole, but.
Yeah, there's going to be opportunity there, but like you said, you know, again, when guys hit the portal and different things, there's a lot of people that reach out, and yet, again, when I say resources and price points are like out of this roof of what you see happening. So when people think of that, I said before, I believe in the guys that are in that quarterback room right now, and I still do. But again, when David decided to move on, we had to make sure that we found another guy that was in there. And when we watched Jason film on how he runs around, what he runs, we felt it fit very much into what we do, and that there was a skill set there that we could develop, and again, he'd compete for the job.
Lance, with Andy coming back, does that change the calculus at all with trying to pick the next quarterback to start for Kansas football?
Change the confidence?
The calculus, and like
Cal-
how we determine who you guys want out there. Does that change because he's a caller?
No, I mean, again, as, you know, he and I will talk about it, Jim will talk about it, how we go about it. The thing about it was, he was involved in Isaiah's recruiting, and he was here when Cole was here. So he knows what we have and where it's going, and again, not to say that we didn't before, but, the thing I love about what Andy's done, and, you know, it was unfortunate for Andy is that now all of a sudden because he was creative, now he's got this somewhat reputation of being gimmicky, and that's not it. And the thing that Andy has done, he has taken the availability of talent in the room and utilized it to its best abilities. And I go back to our time together at Buffalo. In 2018, we led the MAC in offense and led the MAC in passing. The very next year, we led the MAC in rushing. Again, and that's by utilizing and putting your best players in a chance to do that. So that's what I think he'll do, and I know he'll do a great job doing that.
Lance, this is the first time you guys have had this portal window short, gotta get it all done. Just what was it like?
It was moving fast, that's for sure, John, and hope you're feeling well, by the way. And I didn't see your name on the injury report anymore, so I think you're better. Yeah, fast and furious, and it's you know, again, you're trying to find out who's available, how it's moving, can they fit into what you're able to provide. You're trying to get and it's almost like for us, especially the first week, I think we had 25, 26 guys committed in 7 days. It's like a continual flow based on their arrival time, departure times. And it's not like official visit weekends anymore. It was nonstop, but I think all in all, we hit really well on what we targeted and feel really good about it. And on that note, the thing that was very encouraging, whatever, positive, was once again some of the same things I talk about when we talk about our high school class. The families that were here talk about our staff, talk about how genuine and transparent and thorough that they are. They rave about the facilities, and you can look around. We've had a lot of guys, and I think Andy, I'll save that for Andy to answer, but you can ask him about what he thinks of the new facility since he's come back after its completion. There's a lot of things that if we can get young men here, I think we have an excellent chance for us to add to the roster and close deals that way. But it was moving, that's for sure.
This was really the first class that's done this rev share, where they know the money's there. Was there, did you see changes in how that went?
You mean the high school or both? Well, yeah, you know, it's whether we like it or not, money changes everybody, right? And when it's part of the equation, it becomes part of it for a while. The thing I love best, though, is that when we get back on the field and do things, then we're back to playing the game, and that's what I look forward to. That's what I like forward when we go out there to watch the guys work out and do things. That's it. But it has to be part of it. It is the way of it. And again, I thought Rob Ainella did an excellent job, and the rest of our personnel staff of working with that. There's a endless, and there's not enough hours in the day to be talking to all the representatives and people in the back and forth. Our legal staff within the athletic department, Megan and Chad, were unbelievable. I mean, these things are happening, and you're trying to pump out documents and things like that to try to get things done. It's like I said, it's pretty crazy as you hear everybody talk about it.
Last one for me, you mentioned something about Andy come on staff, and you said something about a few small changes. Are there any?
Yep. Yeah, probably the next biggest one is that Joe Deneen will now coach our defensive ends, and Ty Woe will be strictly special teams coordinator. You know, in the unlimited coaching now that you have, it just makes the most sense to use our personnel in such a way that I thought we had a good year in special teams. I think we can take another step in that. Joe's an outstanding young coach, a lot of great energy, a lot of good thoughts. You know, talking with DK, we thought this would be a way for us to move forward and try to be a little bit better where, you know, Taiwo was trying to balance things during the day, during certain things like that. I think he's done a very good job. You look at our defensive ends, they've been very productive in our program here and at Buffalo. But I just feel for us taking the next step, that was one that we should do. Bill Quizert, who was here as a graduate assistant and a quality control coach, went with Andy to Penn State. Has also returned and working in an assistant offensive line position for us as well.
You mentioned David moving on, which helped open the spot for Chase. Were you surprised that David decided to move on?
I'm learning that nothing will surprise me anymore with what's happening. You've got to respect everyone's decisions, whether you always agree or not. In David's situation, I understand it. He felt it would be tough to get a full run at the position. David's a quality young man that think a lot of him and his family. Yeah, did it surprise me? Probably not, because at the beginning, it did in the fact that I thought we were on a good track, that everything was pointing that he would, and then all of a sudden you get detoured, and we did that with about 4 or 5 other guys as well that happened to. So, yeah, and then of course you get a lot of calls about him and stuff like that, and you know we tried to help every guy that moved on, and I think most of our guys have. So.
With Dylan Edwards, he's switching sides of the rivalry. Was that a topic of conversation, just having to deal with the attention that not all transfers can have that kind of attention because they're not switching? Like he is.
I think we all know it's in the room that way. The thing that Dylan and I talked about is that I wanted to make sure that he knew that we were in this with him together to make this a good experience for him. And that was maybe different than some of his other options that he looked at. And again, yeah, rivalries and emotions and things like that from that is can be there, and it probably will continue until the game is played. But for us, it was more of him being healthy and being in a great mindset that he knows that this is a place that can utilize his skills, and for him to, like I said, play his best football that he possibly can.
One more, Michael. You guys have a lot of additions just in the trenches, D-tackle, D-end, and offensive line. Could you walk through maybe both sides, what you liked about what you guys really did?
I wonder if we're gonna talk about any of these guys or not, so I don't know about all these. Again, I'll try to hit some high points and not single out too many guys, of course, is that we wanted to, defensive line after we lose guys, we knew we had to get some bigger bodies and add depth there and get some older players, and I think we were able to really hit on that. I think you're gonna like the guys, we're bringing 4 there. I think it gives us good depth. Blake Harold, of course, is there. Marcus Calvin continues to get better and played some down the stretch. So I really like and the amount of 3 defensive tackles that we played last year, we had to go get a couple more bodies and bodies that had played in college football games, and we did that. David Santiago is a big body, another defensive end from Michigan State. Really like him. Probably, we thought we might lose 2 linebackers, but it ended up being more, and others had indicated that they were probably staying that didn't. So to go hit that, and then again, a lot of those guys. But I really like the makeup of that linebacker room, size, athleticism. It'll be a very highly competitive room there and stuff there. Thought we did the same thing at safety after some things there. After we lost a few, thought we added a couple corners, that'll be athletic add depth, and we know we have guys that have played there, so that was just a little different search in that regard. Flipping the other side of the ball, we needed to get length at receiver. We found Nick McMillan. Nick is somebody that we offered him when we were still at Buffalo. He might have been a freshman in high school, so, and ironic that it's returned that way. Najee Cox is a receiver from Middle Tennessee, that big body that makes a lot of contested catches. Thought we added 2 athletic tight ends to go with the guys that are there now. The running backs are big body guys, and then the ability to add Dylan and his ability to be multiple and used in different ways will be nice. Big bodies up front. Again, we had to continue to add competition on the outside of at the tackle spot. And yet at the same time, big Connor Stroh and a couple others inside that I think, will give us a chance. Casey Carpenter's played between Tulsa and Oklahoma State. Have to, create some things there at the center spot. That's pretty fast, I'm trying, so.
All right, anything else, Coach?
All right.